Hey everyone, you're watching Living the Catholic Life, and I'm Jen. Today we're going to talk about Salem, Massachusetts, and my impression of it from a Catholic and Descendant's perspective. But first, before we get any farther, please, if you like this content, click the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get information when I post a new video. Okay. So I probably should start from the beginning and say that I am an avid genealogist. I've been doing genealogy for over 20 years, and it's actually surprising that I never came across this fact before, but I always, would do my father's or my mother's paternal line, and I never went to the maternal side of my father's family. So that's kind of my defense in not seeing this sooner. But the reason why I found out I'm a descendant is because I came across this name because the Holy Mother kind of sent me there. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Father Chad Ripperger. He is an exorcist sanctioned by Rome, and he has many videos out that are very informative and they're very knowledgeable, and it's really helped me in my spiritual life and growing and learning how to discern things and become a better Catholic. But I was listening to one of his talks one time about generational curses and how he has never seen a family who doesn't have one. Now, what he means by a curse isn't necessarily like a voodoo curse or a Wiccan curse. Basically, what it means is that someone back in your line has done something heinous, bad enough that a demon would attach itself to that person. And oftentimes, as you know, with abuse or many other, things, that it goes down through the generations. And if things still are done that way, maybe not as bad as the initial sin, but that demon follows down through the generations and influences those people. And it really kind of sparked some thought in me, because my family has had so much dissension and arguing over things that shouldn't be this crazy. I mean, we've had a quote-unquote feud for like 40 years, and nobody's happy to see anyone else succeed, and everything's always, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it's just been a mess of anger and dissension and just negativity. And I grew up in that atmosphere, and I was just like, what is this? What family is? So when Father Ripperger said that if you want to get insight into what this demon is, or insight into your relationship with a family member, you have to pray to Mother Mary through the title of Our Lady of Sorrows. And it's so funny because just before that, and you see, I have the Our Lady of Sorrows beads, and I was doing the chaplet. It's almost like I was being led there, before I knew I was being led there. So that's what I did. And I prayed and I asked for insight. Why is our family like this? What is it that has come down through the generations that is just so negative? And so again, I was on the computer one day and doing my genealogy, and I was shown this one name in my tree, and it didn't really trigger anything right away, but I was like, okay, I'm feeling this is where I'm supposed to be. So I started going back and back and back, and the name was Putnam. And I got back to the 1600s, and I started going, oh, don't tell me. But it's true. Anne Putnam, I don't know if you're familiar with the Salem witch trials, but Anne Putnam was one of the accusers, accused all these people of witchcraft, along with Abigail Williams and a few other girls. And her father was Thomas Putnam. Thomas Putnam had a brother, Edward Putnam. Edward Putnam is my 7th great-grandfather, and he had a huge hand in accusations as well. History does say that he did it with good intention. They don't believe that he was like Thomas and was, did it with avarice and, was greedy or whatever, that he actually was taken in by this whole thing. But it's still, when they saw what was happening to these people, they still pressed on, and that was the sin. And I was floored, and I was disgusted, I was shamed, I had so many emotions about that. And it's not a matter of, being responsible for the sins of your father. That's not what I was feeling. But I was feeling sick because of my ties to this. And then it all clicked. We had, feud in our family that had to do with a lot of what the Putnams and Porters went through. And the similarity it floored me. I could not even believe this. So I actually really did cry over the situation. I was just like, thinking, what kind of human being does it take to kill someone over jealousy and greed, and especially Anne being a 12-year-old girl and being possibly, the tool of her father, and still, she did write an apology in her later years and said she was taken in and the whole thing, but it's scary to think that there are human beings out there that can do such a thing. Excuse me for a second. So, knowing that, I really started digging my heels in, and as well as my teeth into this whole thing, and decided to go to Salem to face this once and for all. And of course, I would never voice that I am a descendant of the Putnams, because that just would go over like a you-know-what in church. But I went to the home of Thomas Putnam. I went to the home of Edward Putnam. I didn't feel anything bad there, probably because people had been there many times before me and did some cleansing prayers and some things. But what I firmly believe is that once the line got down so far and it split off, no one prayed for our branch of the family, and the curse just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. So I did also stand in front of those homes, as we don't know where any of them have been buried, which, I can't blame them. How many people would be, defacing their tombs or, what their gravestones or whatever, if that was the case. So all I had was their homes. So I did go there, and I said a prayer, and I broke, hopefully, that cycle with future generations, so that we don't have this kind of hatred and negativity in our family. So I also went to the burying ground, because when I say they don't know where they're buried, they know they're buried in the old burying ground in the middle of Salem Village. They just don't know where. So I did walk it. And also my husband and I said a few prayers there, a few Hail Marys, which, them being Puritans, maybe they didn't, appreciate that. But maybe since they've died and, realized that, Catholicism is probably the truth, I'm hoping they didn't mind too much. But either way, I was doing it to defend my family and my children and grandchildren and future generations from this terrible thing that has attached itself to us. As a descendant, And as a Catholic, what really, really bothered me in Salem itself was people walking around with goat masks and satanic shirts and satanic symbols, and witches, which I understand, the Wiccan perspective. Like, you hung these people for witches because you don't like the Wiccan religion. Well, we're gonna overflow it with witches and, basically, screw the world kind of thing, I guess, whatever. But these people died for their belief. They're martyrs. They're Christian martyrs. They were innocent. And these people have made a game almost out of the deaths of these people. It's an atrocity. It's disgusting. It makes me sick. I actually took a picture of just beyond the wall where the cemetery is, and right across the street is a witch shop and psychic readings and the whole thing. And I just couldn't stomach it anymore. I said to my husband, I'm like, you've got to get me out of here. I can't even. Here I am feeling all this terrible guilt and sorrow because members of my family were able to commit this terrible atrocity. And there's people walking around in fairy costumes and, goat heads and the strangest things you could ever imagine. And it is just so disrespectful that they have turned this place into a carnival. And the witch museum is in a church. I just can't wrap my head around this. I may never go back, at least to Salem. I have no interest. I will probably go back to Danvers, which is where there was Salem Town and Salem Village. Salem Village was where all of this took place. And the Paris House, which is Reverend Paris, who was in on this whole thing with Thomas Putnam. They found the foundation of his home, and I think at some point like to go back there and just stand there and to be there. Not quite sure why. Maybe because of the genealogist in me. Maybe because of one place I haven't prayed over. Be a Catholic. I'm not really sure, but if I ever go back, that will probably be the place I'll go. But I have no interest and no need to go back to Salem to see that mess. I'm sure they're probably rolling in their graves. They have no rest. There's people in and out of that cemetery all the time. And it's commercializing something that was so heinous and so sinful and just terrible. I don't know. But who knows? I mean, I may find someone I'm related to that was murdered as well. That happened often. Such a small community. But as of now, I'm hoping that I have protected my family as I felt the need to. And I thank the Holy Mother for giving me the insight to find where the trouble was. And I encourage you wholeheartedly that if you have issues in your family, if there's a history of drug addiction or alcoholism or health issues, anything like that, pray to Mother Mary under her title of Our Lady of Sorrows, and she will give you the answer. She will give it to you as she did me. And I hope this helps anyone who's looking for help. And I don't mean to offend anyone who is Wiccan or of any other religion. I'm not upset by your religion. I'm upset that it is what's going on there is a direct 180-degree difference from why those Puritans were there to begin with. And it's a farce. I'm sorry, but it is. I hope the rest of your day is blessed, and continue praying the rosary for the change in the world. God bless.